So we can start with the panel. We're going to dive a bit deeper on where to start, because I saw there's many people that are interested in the topic but haven't really dived into it. When this first get prepared. So, yeah, thanks first of all for the great introduction. I think it was a quite interesting journey from like the latest things happening in blockchain and down to the foundations of data science. Pretty cool journey. In terms of like starting with the topic, honestly, I mean, we saw a lot of interest in our network of engineers at Telegram, like people coming back to us like, hey, how do I start into data science? And we're like, okay, well, let's do a panel on it, because I couldn't answer the question properly. Josie, I mean, where did you start kind of like diving into data science, and then like why do you? I mean, you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned launched the data science retreat because you thought, okay, we have to keep up with the rest of the world. But what was the reason behind that?
I had a startup idea doing predictive models for customer lifetime value. I wrote that every company is going to look for have a customer that has over 6 months to buy everything. Should I send him a coupon or something like that? So they estimate a number for customer lifetime value, and here in town there are companies that are very religious about this. So once they get their customer lifetime value, they operate everything, they do everything around this number. So I was a consultant after that. So first I tried a product startup, didn't work. I went into consultancy, I was doing this as an individual. That was working pretty okay. But then one of my clients hired me full time, and I became fashionable back then. And then I stopped doing that to do the design retreat. So at the same time, there was this hacker retreat kind of on the and so everything was considering from the hacker retreat to the design retreat.
Do you have like a big interest? Like, is there some kind of like source or starting point you would recommend to kind of like get into the topic? Or?
I guess the best thing is getting the same with more people who are trying to.
Okay, great. Shermin, I mean, you kind of like came from business and economics, did film in between, then you ended up with Blockchainhub for about, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years maybe? Like, how did that come, and I mean, what has blockchain to do with all of that?
Okay. well, yes, I studied business, but I did my business IT management, actually. Yeah. I did my PhD on the semantic web. And back then it was like the giant hypertext, and how can we find logic in that giant hypertext? And yeah, I think XML didn't come like really as far as it was envisioned, but in a way, blockchain is bringing logic into transactions that weren't there before. And I mean, the semantic web is now social link data or link data in general. So I think it's evolving. To answer your question, how did blockchain happen? About a year ago, somebody told me about blockchain as a technology behind Bitcoin, and when I grasped what it can do, it was very clear to me that it's an answer to many questions that we have for society. Because it's this very powerful general purpose technology, through disintermediation, we can potentially resolve a lot of problems that come from centralization. And so what I started to do a year ago, there was no information on blockchain available that was kind of not white paper or non-technical. So I tried to condense, as I was reading up on it, I did that blog. I started with a blog condensing all the information that was kind of human readable for non-techies. And one thing led to the other. I started connecting people. I was invited to speak at conferences, and I created the Blockchainhub also as a physical hub, and it's now expanding. And the idea of the Blockchainhub is to communicate blockchain in a human-readable language to everybody. Because right now it's still very much in the crypto geek scene, a little bit getting out there. And it's a general purpose technology, and it's very important that people understand what it is, what we can do with it, because it will have major implications, not only on business models, but on blockchain and the future of law, blockchain and the future of governance. This is why I started doing it, and it was a side project that is now a main job.
Yeah. Cool, perfect. Igor, I mean, when I did understand your talk correctly, you kind of said it's focusing on information, also like for people that are really into the topic, like we go to the we study maths, and then like you learn it and you have patents in the US and stuff like that. And how did you come to Berlin, and like how do you resonate with all this kind of like blockchain buzzwords business going on?
I came to Berlin actually just because I'm actually the person of the big cities. So I was born in St. Petersburg, studied in Moscow, and Berlin was very close to me. At least I have now 2 hours direct flight to St. Petersburg. And I like the whole. Again, I was learning economic also for quite a while, as my side interest. And I always admire the German approach to economics. Some incentive to come to Berlin. With all these technologies, I would say that, again, I was always reading about different kinds of technology, different languages. I started with assembly, now and was always with languages, now with Scala, for example. With Bitcoins, I installed, let's say, 4 years ago for the first time on my computer, so did some mining, figure out that it's actually electricity spending and all other things. But I read original papers, because for me it's just normal scientific papers, and they are all about mathematics, and even simpler than mathematics in many cases. So all these things, and if we going back to data science and machine learning algorithms, then it's always my way of learning something new. So let's say that Andrew G, I graduated from his course on Coursera, so it was how I was learning data and machine learning, or some other courses on data science in Coursera again, to learn this new stuff, like R language or Scala language and all those things. So it's just something which is more advanced with, again, big data, for example, with Hadoop stuff, with interesting stuff. It's becoming really powerful things. You can do something that nobody can do.
Somehow, like what that technology is going to do for like Fyber or like the data science world in itself.
I'm never doing evaluation in the, let's say, in the scientific way. I'm always doing some kind of initial familiarization what's happening there, and then usually I'm getting feeling about how perspective is in the future, and I'm just following what's going on there, trying to understand when it's time to start using it. Because let's say Hadoop was developed now 11 years ago. But at that time, if you try to use Hadoop, if you try to install a Hadoop cluster, you will spend probably a week. And as a result, you will get nothing there out of it. So I joined it when it became at least the version 1, where it would be at least taking not a week, but a day to install all these things, and then to fix some other problems. And as it's progressing, I'm feeling that it's really taking mainstream, not in the buzzword, but as a technology, then I'm more and more deep into
this stuff. I saw you being amused while he was having his presentation on a few points. Like, do you agree with him on the stuff he was saying earlier? Or?
I do agree. I think Scala is very promising, definitely. But you asked about evaluating technologies. that's always a big fact. So if you're a CTO or a chief data scientist, you spend 5 days, then you have to make a judgment that's going to kind of marry you to the technology for the next 5 months, maybe 5 years. And it's really a tough spot to be in. Nobody wants to do that, but somebody has to do it.
That's true. Yeah, at least my experience with the big companies is that, and usually it's a wrong choice.
Like Hadoop, for example. Hadoop was the pretty child 3 years ago. Everybody was talking about it. Companies became unicorns just saying, oh, we are the Hadoop company. We support you in your Hadoop journey. These guys are in real trouble right now because Hadoop as a technology is completely obsolete, basically, right now.
You're joking.
I think there was a similar situation with, we saw a lot of companies, for example, within hiring data engineers, where no one's actually hiring data scientists, or like only little companies. What's the difference between the two, and why are so many companies hiring data engineers, but no one, only little companies are actually hiring data scientists?
Well, you mean worldwide or here?
Yeah, I saw them, like recognize them. I don't know how it is worldwide. I can't.
Okay, so first of all, we're in Germany, right? So that matters. So who here knows what people mean when they say data science? Because I teach this stuff and I don't really know. So it's not a very clear term. And Germans don't like things that are not clear. So this is all about accuracy, right? So if there is a word that you don't really know the meaning of, you don't use it in your language. And then people don't use the term data science in German. I think there is a translation, and people use data science in English, right? And I think that's a big factor. And data engineering, hey, engineering, I know what that is, So I see people in Germany using still BI for things that are actually data engineering or data science. Just because data science is something that somebody else does somewhere else, not here, not us. I think that's part of the reason. But there is another part to say, mind that we are not in Germany anymore, we are in the world. I think data engineers are doing things that are not sexy, but that deliver a lot of value for companies. So if you want to piss off a data scientist, you can ask him how many of their models are actually going in production. And they will look at you like, oh man, none or one, like 6 years ago. So it's really frustrating because in data science, the culture is very much about doing scripts, things that work on your machine, or maybe even the cluster that you have for testing, but not on the real production settings. It's also very much a matter of, okay, data science guys are doing R and Python and notebooks and so on, and the real engineers that are doing Java and the stuff that makes the internet. And these two guys don't talk to each other, and if the data scientist produced a model that's very valuable for the company, it has to go to the other side of the wall and just ask very nicely to the Java guys to re-implement it to put it in production. And that is ending because with Scala, people are now starting to work with the same languages, and data scientists are thinking more about production and performance and so on. But that's very new. That's the last 2 years or so. So this is a very long explanation just to say that data engineers may be doing unsexy things that are very needed. This is why demand is kind of going up. Data scientists are doing all the sexy stuff that everybody wants to do, but they're not getting them to production, so then they don't get to deliver value. So that's one problem.
Yeah. Completely different for blockchain and what I thought the limit for any kind of community here. Why that happened?
Well, for a few reasons. Traditionally the Bitcoin community has been focused around virtual because the people who think differently. And then the fourth project, we have a lot of crypto people here, not only for the 4 browser Jacob when he started to come here. a lot of cryptography people are here in the hub, and it's because this culture fits it. Many people came because it was simply very cheap here, and it became this hub. And in the last 5 to 10 years, we have seen Berlin become also a major startup hub, and attracting also all these crypto people. I think it's one of the hottest places to be right now. So, as in, so it's a bit different. So if you look at public blockchains, so this shit is happening in Europe and it's in Berlin. If you look at private blockchains for the consortium, fintech, a lot is happening also in Silicon Valley. So yes, like I said, there are blockchains and blockchains. And it's like two kind of different worlds. And I hope that this time, because if you look at, I don't know, Tim Berners-Lee and the internet, actually, the first internet in the 90s was invented in Europe. And then the Silicon Valley like really made a business model out of it. And it feels like they invented the internet, but it was actually invented here. So I hope that, not wanting to be like, but I really hope that we can start this decentralized process and spread it to the world from Europe. Keep it. Keep the know-how here, but also I see, if you look at the nodes and the Ethereum and Bitcoin mining, especially in the Bitcoin mining networks, they're very much centered around Europe. So I think we need to get them to Asia, we need to get them to South America, we need to get them to Africa and centralize it. But yeah, the community here is very strong.
Another reason?
Yes.
In blockchain people, especially Bitcoin, but not just, are persecuted by the American government now. Yeah,
well,
it's barely legal now.
Now, but that is a relatively new thing.
Yes, but
yes.
You see them escaping here. You see them coming here, starting things here, moving their projects here.
Yes.
It's just dangerous.
Exactly. I mean, legal. I mean, why did the talk project? Exactly. Yes. Maybe I needed to focus that because privacy is a very highly valued thing in Europe. So when we have WikiLeaks happening, this is when Tor came. This is when The Guardian came. All the journalists are sitting here, and everybody knows everybody. You go to the parties, and everybody is there. And they came because the legal system here protects privacy much more, and it's much more tolerant. Yeah, that's true.
Privacy laws.
And talking about legal stuff, this will be very interesting also to see what is happening with the fiasco of the DAO that happened, of course, legislation worldwide is looking into.
Thanks to that. Yeah. One more question maybe on Berlin for Igor. From my, I mean, basically the theory of data science and like how to look at all this data seems to be pretty old. You mentioned it's like 8 years old. I mean, all the theory being applied seems to me like being 20, 25 years old. Has there been much of invention since then, and how was the advertising industry driving this? Because I mean, there's obviously like a lot of big companies like Fyber and Xanos, and they all have some kind of like machine learning and data science approaches to the advertising world. And how did they? Was there anyone really influencing the foundations of data science?
Okay. Again, I believe that data science is some kind of addition to big data. So we had a hype of big data, we had a hype of data science, but realistically for me is the way how big data try to get more attention and more value, I would say, through using new methods to get insight out of data. So before we could take out of data warehouse, and that is usually just BI because there is not a lot of data. Realistically, you cannot use with advanced machine learning out there. Now, what if you're talking about what is happening in data science as a science itself? It's definitely a lot of things happening in algorithmic world. So what we're talking about machine learning here. The biggest and probably advance in machine learning is definitely all kind of neural networks, in particular deep learning. And that has happened during the last 3 years. Okay, the theory was founded 50 years ago, but realistically the advances and realistically the machine power and all this big data which supporting and GPU, what is happening now, what is happening through the last 3 years or even 2 years. The problem there is, as usually with this kind of, for example, with deep learning and neural networks, is that it's really a black box for everybody. There is a very famous story about the company who was doing this marking of numbers on houses for Google. So Google did this street view, and they needed just to mark every building on their map with a number. And you can imagine what kind of numbers you have on buildings. Very different. So they opened some competition, and the company which won this competition and was actually, instead of paid, acquired by Google, they built a neural network, deep learning network, with something like, if I'm not mistaken, something like 37 or 38 layers, which was not possible before just because of computer power and all that. But what was curious about this, that they found that in the last layer, there is a feature, if there is some kind of picture in the left corner of the main picture. So if there is a picture, then it's working fine. If there is no picture, it's not working. So, and this, they couldn't explain why. But this is how the black box of neural network is working. And this is working for a lot of things now, like face recognition or voice recognition or text recognition, all these kind of things. From the other side, we have a lot of interesting algorithms which again coming from the 80s and 90s. Some kind of in graph theory, there are a lot of new development in 2000. But in a lot of algorithms, what we have now is really not a new algorithm, but improving on the previous one, and how to use them in case of big data, where you really need. So it's not just going through the whole data, but it's sampling, it's stochastical gradient descent instead of standard descent. So for me, a lot of advances happening in data science now, but these advances are happening actually not in business, or not in companies. These advances are happening either in big companies like Google or Facebook, or in academia. Or it's actually happening in academia, and Google and Facebook just sponsoring this research.
Jose, you were saying earlier machine learning is eating software. I had a discussion a few weeks back where someone was saying like, hey, we're going to have software that is writing software. So is that going to be, for you, the future application of, like one of the future applications of machine learning and data science? Or?
So imagine that you have an application that is doing something. Any feature that you look at for that application, chances are that you can apply machine learning there and do it a little bit better. The most stupid thing you can find. So auto-completing emails on your compose box. You type 3 characters and it auto-completes with the most likely email. That's very stupid. We're totally used to that, right? That's not new, that's technology, it's not machine learning, right? But more and more things are moving away from being machine learning, things that people do the mountain, and becoming totally mainstream. So right now, Excel is totally mainstream, that's technology. And Excel can do some very basic forms of model fitting, like linear regression and things like that. That's not a surprise for anybody. It's a widespread technology nowadays, right? So what I think is happening is that more and more of these machine learning technologies are becoming mainstream. And your phone is running a lot of these things right now. And what is even more interesting that we as individuals can use those technologies far better than 5 years ago because they are much better packaged. So Google is behind one of the top libraries right now for deep learning, and they have this grand vision of making deep learning work not only in big clusters with lots of CPUs and GPUs, but also on mobile phones. And the API, what you actually use as a programmer, is much nicer than before. And everything is kind of becoming Lego blocks that everybody can put together. So that means that hopefully our children will put together incredibly cool, sophisticated machines that do things that look very human by just putting together Lego blocks. So right now, it's so much better than 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were writing our own algorithms from scratch, basically, right? And the things that were online were from some academic department that was like horrible. The code was
no. You have to pay SAS or SPS.
Yeah,
a lot of money
for license. Exactly, on top of that, right? And now you just go anywhere you go, R, Python, Scala, plenty of very good machine learning algorithms perfectly implemented for you to just consume. So if you can write one line of code, you can consume it.
I have a question. We were talking about this the other day. It's actually GitHub, like you do something with GitHub, they should be learning from, there is so much code there. They should be learning from dummy code.
GitHub, it's as usual. GitHub is a very interesting organization as a company. Know the structure of GitHub itself as a company? No, not really. They have a very interesting business model. So they running any kind of project if there is a team of 3 or 5 people inside GitHub company. So you can just come and say, okay, I want to run this project. There is 3 people who will work on this. Yes, get money, get plan, and you can run your project inside GitHub company. That's one thing. But this is why I'm saying that what they are doing. They, as a result, they don't have this kind of plan. Okay, we want to do some machine learning for us. So what they're doing instead is, if there is somebody interested in doing any kind of data analysis in them, they are just opening it. So I know about very interesting project from, for example, from Google employees. Again, it's not Google itself, but it's Google employees who run on GitHub, for example, how rude are different language programmers. So they actually estimated the rudeness of through the comments on the Git comments or commits, and they estimated that the most rude guys are actually C programmers and so on. So you can actually do a lot of interesting researches as soon as you have skills and time.
So the politest in JavaScript?
And not really, I don't remember. The politest actually would be some smaller language, like, for example, Haskell.
So if you think about what that does, it's just looking for swear words on comments. That's not fancy, right? Maybe they do some word to or something, but you can do so much more than that. Code analysis is not a place where there's much action in machine learning, as far as I know. I may be missing some parts of the world that are doing this. But you cannot compare machines and trying to understand code to machines trying to understand pictures or trying to understand natural language. There's a lot of action. Another place where we're going to see a lot of development is chat bots. So the idea that you type something in a text box and you get 10 links in the Google search, right? That's kind of going away, and people like Microsoft, Google, Facebook are trying to make chat bots that can answer your questions and know what you want and give you just the thing that you want, not a list of 10 links. So I want a laptop that lasts 10 hours battery and can run Scala 8. Find me that. Give me exactly the one I want. Not a list of 10 links that I have to scroll. So that's where things are going, and natural language processing is now picking up a lot of speed because apparently people have gotten sick of doing object recognition in images with deep nets, and now it's text. Right? The next thing is text.
I know of another project, for example, GitHub data, where they were analyzing the social networks within the networks of programmers, and it's really interesting because you have 2 different layers of networks. So you have the network of like contributing programmers actually writing code, and other people that are stepped down as developers, but they still have the information within that network of people. So they kind of like control the project, like the flow of information, and then there's a flow of code, and that's 2 different networks.
But that's probably more with graph theory rather than data.
Yeah. I mean, graph theory is another like super interesting topic, but how is that all connected to data science? Like, is there some natural link?
The same way. It depends upon how you present your data. let's say that the example is Facebook, that they moved all their data now on a graph. So it's now a graph API where you can get all answers from it. It's very badly designed, as usually, as everything happening in data architecture way. But it is designed for themselves, and it is all based on this connection. So you actually query using some specific language for graphs, which is again much better because there are a lot of good algorithms how to find, for example, the shortest path and other things which is not possible in other sets rather than in graph.
And I think the graph theory will be very important on blockchains because in the end you have these transaction graphs that you can do.
Talking about badly designed, we mentioned the DAO earlier, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, and basically the first that was ever put in place basically kind of failed right now just a few weeks after it was launched.
Yeah,
how can we, like, I mean, how did that happen after all, and like, okay, how can you avoid that and like going forward?
Ooh, I don't know if I can. So, who has heard of the DAO? A few people. All right, so we can talk about. So, DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and as I mentioned earlier, well, I didn't actually mention it. So I said we have blockchains to put smart contracts on top of them. And the highest form of a smart contract, or the most complex form of a smart contract, is a DAO. Like Bitcoin is a really simple smart contract. It's just a code, it's like a protocol just defines how to safely send money from A to B to people who don't know each other and avoiding double spending. So this is how to do it. Very simple smart contract, yet complex code. Now, imagine running a whole organization based on a smart contract, and that would be a decentralized autonomous organization. The idea of the DAO is to have all the bylaws of that organization auto-embedded in the code, so all rules are predefined, and then everything is executed automatically. So up until 2 months ago, that was theory. And then 2 months ago, the guys from Slockit, they had worked on the DAO. Unfortunately, they called it the DAO, and they didn't give it a more creative name. And the DAO was a crowd investment DAO. That the idea was to deploy this code of that smart contract, and then start this decentralized crowd investment, kind of an investment fund without investment managers, where all token holders could vote based on the number of shares they had or tokens they held on projects that would be funded or not. Well, the first thing that happened was that, against all expectations from everybody involved, that thing managed to raise $150 million US dollars, equivalent to US dollars in the first 2 weeks, almost. And by the end, like 180 by that time, after 4 weeks. The problem was that before it went online, a moratorium was called because some attack vectors were identified. And as we were, I'm one of the curators of the DAO, as we were trying to find a solution for those attack vectors and to see if we upgrade or just have a proposal framework, actually somebody attacked the DAO and with a recursive call function depleted the DAO by 50 million at that time of Ether or DAO tokens in that time. So that's the background story. That whole thing was not, yeah. So we have to talk about, the thing is, some people say it failed. Yeah, and maybe it failed in the traditional sense, but what has happened, fortunately, is that because the DAO was attacked, for 4 weeks we've been trying to fix it, because the thing is, was attacked, and the money is in an address, and it has not been, it was removed yet because it has this grace period of 28 days. And so for the last 28 days, we have been trying to find solutions to refund the token holders. And one of the solutions is to make a hard fork of Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is like the code, is not related actually to the DAO. And so we have a lot of discussions here. We cannot go into the detail of the discussion. But one discussion is the immutability of the blockchain. Because the blockchain promised us to be immutable and censorship resistant. Now, what is the Ethereum community doing? Because 50 million in DAO tokens are an equivalent of almost 30%, 13% of all Ether held. So the guy who stole it, or the people who stole it, would potentially be able to cash out 30% of Ether. So the community has now decided to make a hard fork to censor that one transaction, or that one recursive call function. And we have one discussion now about, okay, Ethereum or the Ethereum community now is the DAO too big to fail, like banks used to be, and the immutability of the code was promised on, oh my God, there was so much drama, and now we're having censorship. And then, so we have for the first time the discussion, well, is it really censorship if the majority of the network decides that they want to do it because there was this one person who acted in violence against the general consensus? That is not really censorship. So but there is a lot of, you see how new this discussion is, because when blockchains came around, it was about getting rid of the middleman. The idea was that the blockchain is immutable forever and ever. And now, as the technology is starting to mature and the first use cases are coming, we're hitting reality. And as we're hitting reality, we're learning that the world, surprise, is not black and white, and that probably the questions in between. And yes, the blockchain is immutable, and yes, it's a problem if one person can censor it, but is it really censorship? The community decides. That's one question. Talking about black boxes, because I think that's very important. So I think one of the dangers, I was advocating the blockchain before, one of the dangers of the blockchain is, so the blockchain said we get rid of the middleman. That's the promise of the blockchain. The problem is that I think, and especially with the DAO, we can see it. I'm a curator of the DAO, I'm in these channels, and I very often don't understand what we're discussing. So basically, this because these are very high-level engineers. It's like basically only 20 people around the world who really, really understand the DAO code in combination with the blockchain protocol. So these blockchain or smart contracts that we're doing, if they end up being black boxes, the smart contracts are the new middlemen, and the people. We are creating a new elite of people, the very highly sophisticated engineers who will become our new trusted third parties. So unless we find a way to visualize smart contracts and interdependencies, using graph theory we need a lot of visualization, we will have a problem. And the third point, I know it's getting very long, is this was an edge case. So the idea was like, okay, we decentralize everything, but you cannot predefine everything in the code. So we're learning now that we need governance tools for edge cases, because the smart contract is only as smart as the people who code it at the time of coding, and they cannot foresee all edge cases. And the more complex the smart contracts gets, the more potential attack vectors you have. So you need good governance mechanisms.
But this doesn't sound so bad. So you're describing a future where you are motivated enough and you are smart enough, you can learn enough to be at that elite group of few people who understand all this super cool stuff and are becoming the new kings, right?
Yes, the new kings are the coders.
But it can be also described to a Wiki science fiction movie, no?
Right. I've got a question. That's better than what we have right now, which is like, how can you be at the top political level other than doing old-fashioned Game of Thrones stuff of like killing people in their sleep and
You're in Germany, it's not happening.
It's happening here. Well,
let's open up the audience.
May I have one question to that? Because if you look for the ambitions to say, okay, we want to to decentralize and democratize the world, you could say, and on the other hand, maybe you have the biggest nightmare you ever can dream of. elite of 10 people is ruling the world. Well, and this is more than the financial crisis, but maybe some Americans created conducted, but that wasn't 10, you can say. And this comes out, and what is the solution to governance to that? But how to democratize, you can say, the people who are making the product.
Yeah, well,
nobody can understand it.
Well, I think you said also something in the beginning. We really have in Europe to take care, make sure that we, within the next 20 years, don't become the North Africa of the world. Because this is right now happening. We should be teaching at kindergarten everyone to code, just hello world. We need to teach that at the university. It's 2016, we're still not doing it. So these people in 15 years will go out of school not being able to code, and everything is running on code. We have a problem. So one of the reasons why these smart contracts are black boxes is because nobody knows how to code, So if we have more people, but we need to have that discussion that you just mentioned. One of the things we're doing at the Blockchainhub, by the way, this is why we're going out there trying to talk to Otto Normalverbraucher, trying to make it understandable to everyone. And we need to look at what are we creating now, because in my opinion, the protocols of Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're like the constitutions of our future societies, and nobody is looking who's creating that. And it's a bunch of really cool kids doing that, but they're all white and between 20 and 25, and there are no women, there is no other kind of cultural diversity in it, and they have the best intentions, but nobody is really watching. And
Maybe one question, because if you look back to history, you see that the most ambitious projects, communism, other things, started with very great ambitions. Yeah?
Exactly.
They inspired the people.
Exactly.
At the end, they always, you can say, find themselves that a small group of people become more and more powerful because of using, you can say, this product, and they use it because they are humans to the wrong side.
Well,
so this sounds a little bit that we are entering into that logic again, because even if out of this 20 people, 100 people, 98 are good people, maybe there will be a Stalin again, you could say, who changed the game.
I think that is less the problem. The problem is the naivety. What happened with the DAO, and I know a lot of these people, they genuinely did not think that it would be possible, that it was a combination, like I saw this happening second by second, right? Yeah. So it happened because they had this idealistic idea of complete decentralization, and talk to Christoph Jensch today, He will tell you, decentralization doesn't work because nobody is assuming responsibility, So these things, unfortunately, as I said, with communism, with many revolutionary ideas, happen not because people become corrupt also, but because when we design it with this absolute values, idealistic values of immutability or whatever, code as law and all these things. But you have to be realistic. And if we don't manage to combine the idealistic values of decentralization, blockchains, and everything with the realistic set of the reality, we will probably, it could be that it will suffer the same fate. So this is why we should be talking about this.
One last point. Is let's say, probable that somebody attacked the DAO without being an insider of the DAO?
Yes, if you read
yes,
because
everything is open source. Everything is open source. Okay. And actually, the guy, for example, why was the moratorium called a week or 2 3 weeks before the attack happened? Because Emin Gunzir from Cornell University, together with his student, and then Vlad from Ethereum, they brought up this paper together and described the attack vectors and said there should be a moratorium. So that guy is a professor at Cornell University, he's a complete outsider, and he's actually in our security channels, and he keeps contributing to solutions. And yes, of course, it's open source, so anyone could have attacked it. everything is possible. So we still don't know. I don't know who the attacker is. There are wild theories out there. Anything is possible.
Yeah. Also, appointed by the hub for discussions and decisions, and my point of view is like, yeah, let that money go. It's a big hack, but we put 10 billion into risk by making the hub for. Think about the implications. Because I actually believe that talk about Bitcoin miners, the Chinese are probably in the majority. Extremely high powers of the government. Second, think about how long it's going to take until some US judges would simply send the letter of enforcement to the mining company saying, yes, this is a steal transaction. You are no longer to sign any block which derives from this transaction. You basically create a precedent which would allow governments or legal systems in the democracies essentially to enforce this censorship.
Thank you for bringing that argument, because this is exactly what I was referring to, because this is exactly the discussion that is happening. So I'm not sure it's a valid point. So to repeat what he said, and that's the big discussion for the pro for hard fork and against hard fork, is that if you introduce censorship once, you will do it always again. But the point is, in theory, and the hard fork is very different than on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's like you're censoring like this one transaction and not the whole block. You're not reverting history of the whole blockchain.
But they were saying that you could transfer it.
Yes.
But basically what I would actually say, but exactly the same thing could be applied to blockchains as well.
Yes.
If basically somebody says that something is a malicious transaction, same thing.
But in a decentralized network, like in blockchain, so the Chinese government, well, in Bitcoin, you are right. Right now in Bitcoin, almost 50% of the network is controlled by a few mining pools in China. But the thing is, you cannot, like that, one single government cannot censor the Bitcoin or the Ethereum blockchain, because this is this decentralized network of computers. So if a few nodes are censored, the rest will not play along. We do have this problem of concentration with Bitcoin. But there are two different issues. Bitcoin, this is getting very technical. So if you want to have technical Bitcoin blockchain talks, I will be here. But it might get boring for the people who are not.
Let's make a point here. I think that's a good thing. Do we have more questions, like on the more general topic?
Yeah, I have a question. So about blockchain, you said that it's the only kind of known successful application in Bitcoin. But from my experience, and I'm an engineer, and I have lots of people who are engineers who are not. Nobody uses it. The only mention of Bitcoin is actually used by some hackers to legal transactions, basically.
Well, that's not true anymore. The new, actually 2 or 3 days ago, if you
my question is, like, after 8 years, basically.
No, of course, there's so many there are thousands of altcoins out there having different use cases. It just hasn't scaled to a place where it's really the killer application that a majority of the world population is using. We have very, very many interesting startups or decentralized applications now building on top of the Ethereum blockchain, and it's not only like small three people startups like Slockit actually themselves. They are doing this user access control, machine-to-machine user access control. It's very interesting what they're doing. You have a bunch of applications. You even have big companies like RWE doing machine-to-machine communication for their electric cars, that they will, when the electric car is at a red light, and there is like a kind of charging station beneath the red light, and when you're waiting there for 2 minutes, you're charging your energy, and you're automatically the car is paying off while charging. So we have a few interesting applications. They are just not out there yet in the general public. And I think that in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll see many interesting things coming. It's in a very, very early stage, but a lot is happening. If you look at it, a lot is happening. But you won't read in detail about it.
Just exactly my point. A lot of what happens, but it's a bit like a semantic web. It was very cool, but nobody uses it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I live the semantic web, and I think that is different, because basically what we're doing, and if Ethereum, we're like building a new computer, and it's a world computer, and it's decentralized. It's very different to the semantic web. That's really a game changer. Like we're changing the rules of the game. We're going away from running applications on central devices to running applications decentralized on a universal world computer that no single entity can shut down. Now, we're in the very early stages. We're still building on the protocol. We still need to work a lot on edge cases, protocol, how do we want to, but this is coming and this is happening. And maybe in 2 years, there will be something that's even cooler, but is based on that idea. But I think that's here to stay. So, I don't know, my personal.
One more.
Yeah, so I have a question for everyone, or maybe a general discussion question about privacy, and especially about the cultural differences in the big data or data science community and the blockchain community about privacy. Because I can hear very different relations to privacy. In the blockchain community, people love privacy. They love decentralization and not giving any data to Facebook and keeping everyone with their own data and owners of their own data. In the business intelligence community, people love having data to work on, and there was the whole thing about how we need to collect as much data as possible so we can have data for our algorithms. In the data science research community or coding community, they're like, we like having data, but we also like privacy. So the question is, can even people play nice? Can data scientists and blockchain people even play along? Because I don't know almost any collaborations, and I wonder if there could be collaborations as long as blockchain people don't want any kind of massive data concentrated in one place, and data scientists want all of the data concentrated in one place so they can work on it.
Well, I think it's not that important that data is concentrated in one place. It's just more convenient. But if data is spread all over the place, we can also do the stuff we do. It's just more difficult.
It's not available to you because Facebook doesn't own it. People own the phone.
Absolutely. So it's more difficult, but it's not impossible. For example, blockchain stuff. There's plenty of people working on projects on blockchain stuff. We have one portfolio project on trying to trace transactions to see if there's something obvious that you can catch and so on. That failed because it took forever to decode and try blockchain. We had to do something else, but anyway. So there are plenty of things that you can do with blockchain data that are sexy and people in data science want to do. So it's not that you need to be part of Facebook to do interesting data science.
I think that actually the question about privacy in the game, regardless data science or whatever, is as usually some kind of understanding that okay, I'm giving part of my privacy for something. So you're giving it because as a result you're getting back some additional advantages of doing this. For example, the simplest example is Google. So you're giving it more and more data about yourself, and as a result, you're expecting that it will work for you better and better. That is where it always will be some kind of linear. You don't have any data, you have totally anonymous, then we cannot help you. Then you're on your own, search yourself, go to every website. Or you already, it doesn't mean that you're always giving your privacy for something valuable. A lot of cases where you're giving your privacy for nothing for yourself and even for danger that you will be hacked or whatever. And that is another big problem. But good intention, usually, if you're talking about the good intention in data science, it's as usual intention. Good intention is that more you give data about yourself, better we can serve you.
Yeah. Okay, two things. I think this privacy is like the immutability of the blockchain. It's black and white, but life is not black and white, as you say. There are advantages of having data science, and for data science we need big data. Now, when it comes to privacy, on the blockchain, there is this myth about on the blockchain everybody being anonymous, which is not true. Otherwise, they would have never caught the guy from Silk Road. We have relative and absolute anonymity. So we have relative anonymity for most users because it's open source. It's really hard for most people who don't have the necessary time, money, or tools. You have privacy because most people cannot identify you as you. But if somebody wants to track you down on the blockchain, they most probably will be able to do that with enough time and resources. So.
But not through blockchain, but through other stuff. So it's not the problem of blockchain. It's a problem of application, how you're using it. And I believe in this respect is another, that the DAO problem is again, is not a problem of a code or of theory. Theory is good. Code is also good. It's probably the rules are not, or somebody play these rules for their own advantage. So the rules were established, they were coded, and they were working perfectly fine. The problem is that in that rules you can play in the way that is not expected, and that is how you can play the system.
And you will, with every technology, and in every circumstance of life, with or without technology, you always have bad actors. So I think we need to ask ourselves, how do you cope with bad actors? Whether it's governments using big data to spy on you, whether it's people trying to deplete a decentralized investment fund when it's clear that it's not in the purpose of this thing. So, yeah, it's not privacy is the question, because we are beyond privacy. In the digital world, there is no such thing as privacy before the digital world. The question is, how do we deal with bad actors?
I guess that there was a society the same for IoT data, for example, or when we use that data, we would have access to it and stuff like that. So, yeah, cool. Thank you very much. I think we're closing down the official part. We're going to be around, so like more discussion to come. Thanks for joining. The whole recording is going to be available on the talent.io YouTube channel, so you can like rehear it and share it with your friends. We're going to do this again for sure and announce it through Twitter, etc. Thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation.